Well, Javier, tonight was a episode of SmackDown that was bookended by two major segments. The first segment featuring John Cena in his goodbye to Chicago and WWE Smackdown, his last appearance in that city and on this show, and a challenge by Sami Zayn, the new United States champion, to bring things full circle for John Cena. Cena accepts the challenge and faces Sami Zayn in a multi-segment match, only for the match to end without a finish. Shocking, I know. When Brock Lesnar came out and laid out John Cena, leading to the official announcement of John Cena versus Brock Lesnar at WrestlePalooza. And at the very end of the show, we had Seth Rollins up in a skybox, Becky Lynch come out to the ring, CM Punk come out. Becky Lynch puts the bad mouth on Punk once again. The fans know what's coming. Everybody at home knows what's coming. And we did indeed get the return of Punk's wife, AJ Lee, who took the fight to Becky Lynch. And Seth Rollins ended up carrying his wife out of the arena over his shoulder while Punk and AJ Lee celebrated. So, big picture question here for you, Javier, is which segment was better from both a quality standpoint and for getting across what it needed to get across, getting across what it was intended to get across? Which segment did you like better?
You're putting me in a hard position because one has Punk in it, and the other one had a screwy finish. So I think I personally liked the Cena Zayn match a little bit better, just because it's an end of an era kind of stuff. So I kind of gravitate more towards that. But I think the majority of the fans would probably gravitate towards the AJ Lee return because it was just so hyped up and people were kind of waiting for that already. There've been several moments beyond this time that people have been like, oh, is it I think it was like the Royal Rumble and stuff like that, and is she going to show up for Evolution, that kind of stuff. So the appetite was whetted for that. So I think that's going to be what's going to be the more memorable takeaway for the show. Plus it closed it, but for me personally, I think I like the Cena thing, not including the Brock Lesnar, because once they said we're gonna have this match, Cena's not winning the U.S. Championship, and Sami Zayn's not is not beating Cena. Although, and then the other thing is that and we'll get to it, is the Sami Zayn boost. I was actually surprised because I did talk about that in my the Acknowledge WWE podcast, where I did mention that I think Zayn tucking tail and changing, going to another, stop going after the big title and then getting a mid-level title was might end up hurting. And but I'm like, the fans have been pretty much, well, Chicago proved me right. Chicago fans are usually like a step ahead of everybody else. And I was surprised at the booze, and it wasn't like a booze because he was just wrestling Cena. It was like booze the moment he came out.
Yeah, and that was a little confusing to me. We're scheduled to have an on-site correspondent join us a little later on, so I'll be curious to get his thoughts on it. But this was a crowd that seemed like if John Cena had spent the entire 2 hours just riffing in the ring, they would have been fine with it. So I thought that Sami Zayn coming out was sort of, oh, you're interrupting our last time with John Cena. And so we don't like that. And that was kind of my take on it. Is that kind of how you thought? Because they did seem to come around to him when he was complimenting John Cena, when he set up the match with Cena for the U.S. title. The fans not really expecting maybe to get John Cena in a match in his last episode of SmackDown in Chicago. But was that your kind of read on it, that they were sour on Zayn because he just happened to interrupt John Cena's goodbye? Or was it more than that?
Not so much, because I would think, all things being equal, hell, me, I'd be like, oh, cool. He's going to be one of the people that Cena's going to get to wrestle before he leaves. Cena had talked about there are a bunch of people he wanted to wrestle, but he wasn't going to, just not enough time. It was specifically, he was being asked about using the Styles Clash, and said he's going to use some of the moves of the people he wishes that he could wrestle one more time. This match was like proof that he knows more than 5 moves. Doing Kurt Angle's moves, doing Roman Reigns' moves, doing the pop-up powerbomb to honor people that excuse me. I was trying to hold that back. Honor other wrestlers that he wasn't going to get to. I would think that the fans, knowing that it would be Cena getting a shot at this, that people would be excited to see the two of them. I do think it has more to do with, more to do with like people kind of like tired of the current Sami Zayn gimmick kind of thing. Because I know I was already like, this isn't cool for the last 2 weeks. And again, maybe this is just a one shot. And it was mentioned in commentary that it was brought up that that the fans have been having, the fans are giving Zayn a hard time. In the match is fine because I'm expecting people want to see Cena win, and they were really hard on that ref too. But I think there's more. I think there's a little bit more to the booze than just he interrupted Cena kind of thing.
A couple comments in the chat, and if you're watching live on YouTube, we'd certainly like you to join us in the chat. We'll highlight some of the comments to discuss here on the show. BJ saying the Sami Zayn boos were surprising. Sort of understand the boos against Cena, but the Sami sucks chants were even more surprising and upsetting, and people don't like the international crowds. And then we have Sadler jumping in with another theory. There's an online hate parade that started for Sami because he buried Karrion Kross, and he's boring all of a sudden. Sami would have been booed tonight no matter what. I'm not sure I really buy that one. I think if Sami had been booed tonight in concert with tons of "We Want Kross" chants or, that sort of thing, then I could maybe buy that connection. But this was something outside of that, in my opinion.
I mean, it might factor in a tiny bit because sometimes you just need a group of people to give you the permission to boo.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like I've kind of been sensing that with Cody Rhodes, and I was worried that we would have started that with Sami Zayn because the problem is his gimmick's gotten a little bit rote. So that's where, and that's the other thing is it was, as was mentioned, the "you suck" chants are more of the "we're kind of tired of your gimmick" kind of thing.
And Jared in the chat saying the crowd was hot for Sami winning the title last week. So this doesn't seem to be a groundswell. There's momentum against Sami Zayn. Now, where it goes from here will be interesting. Are other crowds going to pick up on this? Are they going to start booing him? If he does continue with the U.S. title open challenge, as he sort of intimated in his conversation with Cena in the ring tonight, and if he there's rumors of Tony D'Angelo getting called up to the main roster. If Tony D'Angelo is a surprise challenger for Sami Zayn, just like Sami Zayn was a surprise NXT challenger for John Cena once upon a time, are fans going to cheer D'Angelo because he's new and maybe boo Zayn and kind of continue this down the line? I think that's going to be something interesting to watch.
Yeah, the thing about Sami though is he's got 3 hometowns pretty much. The entire country of Canada, France, because of the he speaks French, and when he goes to Saudi Arabia, so they have judiciously booked him to have strong outings when they're in those locations. So I think that was part of my worry is like, how is it going to be when he gets back to the United States and he's not in friendly territory. Again, Chicago's also, I mean, not like it used to be, but more of a bellwether compared to some other places they go to. So maybe it's going to be just like you said, like an off thing. Depends on who they book him. I'd consider slowly maybe shifting him and see where things go, and have him face people and maybe take shortcuts. He's going to do the open challenge, but when he finds himself in trouble, he might do a little bit of the poke in the eye kind of thing.
In the chat, Derek says, I think people are overreacting to Sami getting booed, similar to how they overreacted to Punk in Saudi. Sami is fine. Outside of Punk interfering with Cena, anyone would have been booed. I always go back to WrestleMania and Cody Rhodes against John Cena. And we had this whole discussion for a week about, is this the time to turn Cody Rhodes heel? Because he was getting booed against John Cena. It wasn't getting booed like Sami Zayn was. He was getting booed out of the building. People wanted to see John Cena win the title at WrestleMania. And has Cody Rhodes lost his babyface fastball? There were all these think pieces and all these podcasts talking about Cody Rhodes. Is he done as a babyface after this? And then nothing. He's just back to being a babyface, and he's cheered everywhere else. So I hate to get too wrapped up, and we've probably already spent more time discussing it than we maybe should, but I hate to get too wrapped up in one crowd's opinion without seeing at least a few more weeks of evidence.
Yeah, we'll see. But I think I personally think that part of the problem is they need to do something with him. He's just not doing anything. I mean, you had the situation where it was, and it's no fault of his own. It's just that there have been so many people that have been high up on the card. I'd love for him to get a world heavyweight, at least a shot at it. But when you booked a 4-way in the same show where you tell him, that you show, oh yeah, I want a shot at the big title, and you say, oh yeah, we'll talk about that, and then that same show you book a 4-way and throw in Jey Uso, who wasn't even involved in that feud, over Sami Zayn, you're making an actual statement that this is not, Sami Zayn is not the guy we're running with. We're running with LA Knight and. Granted he was part of the storyline, but we're running with Jey over Sami Zayn at the moment. Plus, Sami Zayn also has the cachet that he also does a very good heel too. So he has that versatility. I'm curious if they're going to move on what they heard today. I'm curious if this gives other audiences permission to do, or it might just be a blip on the radar. So
yeah. Well, this is a good time to pause and kind of reset the show. Not even reset, but set the show. I am Pro Wrestling Torch columnist Greg Parks, filling in for Torch editor Wade Keller here on the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show after WWE Smackdown, a very eventful WWE Smackdown for September 5th, 2025. And I'm sharing a screen with longtime PWTorch.com contributor Javier Machado, the host of Acknowledging WWE, one of the daily casts here on PWTorch.com. Javier, I don't think we've had the opportunity to chat since I stepped down from hosting Wrestling Night in America. You were a frequent guest on there, so certainly not our first time together, but it's great to hear from you once again.
Yeah, I think we were together on the SummerSlam one. Were you on that?
I think we were two ships passing in the night.
Briefly, we overlapped briefly. I was
yes,
because it was with Brandon Leclerc.
Yeah,
but it's been a bit. And I might take issue with long time.
I mean, it comparison,
it is,
in comparison to others.
It is, but it's just like. Someone said today that called what was the game? I forget what game it was, but it was something that came out like 10 years ago, an old school game. And I'm like, really? Oh my god, I feel old. Mass Effect, I think is what it was. And I'm like, really? No, Dragon Age Origins. That was the one. It's like, oh, Dragon Age, one of my favorite old RPGs. I'm like, oh my god.
Time flies. What can I say? So thank you for tuning in, whether you're watching here live on YouTube or listening after the fact on PWTorch.com. Wade is here all the time. He's you can subscribe to gain access to Wade's rundown of the show. He's on assignment here tonight, but he is here every Monday night after Raw, Wednesday night after Dynamite, and usually Fridays after SmackDown. So make sure to watch him and do his thing on this show, I guess. Be a part of the show. As I mentioned, if you're watching live, type your questions into the chat. We'll discuss them live. I've already starred several comments that we'll get to a little later on tonight. Here's the banner that I wanted to show earlier about Wade being on here all the time. So, I don't know how he does it, but, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it's a rough schedule. I mean, the wrestling schedule is crazy, Javier. Like I turn around and it's like another weekend with like 3 shows, and I just don't know how I'm going to get through it. And then I get through it, and then like it's another weekend with 3 shows. So it's very difficult. I feel like it's pretty close to the breaking point. Like if they add one more weekly show, like I might go insane because I can't not watch. I feel like to do this job, I have to be up on everything, and that's my own kind of quirk. But It is what it is. It's not going away. Please like the show, comment, as we said, subscribe to our channel. If you're interested in volunteering, I started as a volunteer. Javier started as a volunteer. Interested in being a contributor to PWTorch.com with written weekly reports and columns, apply to join our team. Email Wade Keller, kellerwade@gmail.com. So, I guess I'll plug I'll plug everything right now. VIP membership, pwtorch.com/govip. You can sign up with all different kinds of payment options. You get a bunch of perks, the newsletter. You get ad-free shows. Just too many things to list is the bottom line. So you can also go there and read up on what all a PWTorch VIP membership brings you. It's a lot. That's the hint. But anyway, back to the first segment. There was a match. We're talking about everything, but there was actually a match, and it was a long match. John Cena wrestled here on SmackDown. You kind of mentioned how he was giving homage to some other opponents that he's had. The crowd seemed to will him into an RKO, which I thought was kind of funny. What did you think of the match itself? There were a couple of rough spots, but I thought once it got going, it was pretty good. And this is a John Cena that we've seen have two really good matches in a row, not just on the John Cena scale of really good matches against Cody Rhodes and Logan Paul. Do you think this match against Sami Zayn tonight fit in with those other two matches that he's had, or was it not as good as what we've seen out of him lately?
I mean, it wasn't as good as those other two matches, and I think it took him a while to get warmed up, because that first segment of that match felt like the ones that he was having when he was a heel, and I'm like, okay, I guess this is just because it's on TV. It's going to have a screwy finish, and but once it entered the second segment of the match, and then they started getting warming up, then it became a Cena match, which was just one guy hits his move, the other guy hits his moves, and just and sell, hit a move, sell, hit a move, sell. And then that's pretty much how kick out of everybody's finish, each person's finisher. It's kind of evolved into like a B tier Cena match, which is still a good place to be. So yeah, that's pretty much how I felt about that. Hard to get invested when you know that Brock Lesnar was going to come out and ruin the match for everybody. So
yeah, Brock Lesnar. Unfortunately, the last two times I've been on audio are the two times that Brock Lesnar has appeared. So it was the SummerSlam Night 2 that you were talking about with Brandon LeClaire, and now here tonight. So I'm kind of over talking about Brock Lesnar. I've talked about it once. I feel like I've kind of spilled my guts and said everything I needed to say on the SummerSlam Night 2 podcast. I frankly don't really want to give a lot more of my breath to Brock Lesnar and what he's doing in WWE, but I understand that it's a big part of WWE, and he's going to be a big part of at least the next pay-per-view and potentially more after that. But Brock Lesnar's return, Javier, just kind of how it's been handled so far in the two appearances he's made, and I guess if you really wanted to make the argument that John Cena in his final days in WWE, Brock Lesnar is one of those key opponents in his career that he's had. And I guess maybe to some people, Cena's retirement tour wouldn't be complete without him facing Lesnar. What's your take on just how the Lesnar thing has played out so far and their upcoming match at WrestlePalooza?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say how it's played out since it's been just he comes out and beat up Cena twice. Got two.
I mean, I guess is that they're certainly limiting him. Like they're not putting him in there doing interviews. They're not having him explain why he's attacking John Cena at this moment right now. Like it's just okay, 2 attacks in a match. That's kind of what we're getting. Is that satisfying? I guess to fans who are interested in seeing Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, I mean, it just I'm checking to see how many maybe 2 more shows beforehand. For him to explain what's up and give his perspective on things. Hopefully we get in the next one of the next 2 weeks. And I mean, it's hard to talk about because it's just outside of what you said that it's just one of his biggest rivals. He's dealt with Orton and other people he's wrestled. So it's it makes sense for that. I mean, I guess again, part of the problem is I was out during a lot of that period, but I'm assuming Batista was also probably another one of someone, but you're not going to get him now. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's a big card with the people that they've got planned for that, with AJ Lee coming back and Lesnar and Cena, and so the rest of the card is going to be big. And AEW, I think they're running their pay-per-view earlier, right?
Yeah, they moved it to the afternoon.
Yeah, so particularly since they're hard, their top talent, a lot of their top talents are injured. So yeah, I mean, they're loading up the card, and it's more of a marquee match for like people like, oh yeah, I remember when Cena wrestled Lesnar. And yeah, that's pretty much. I'm hoping to get some answers, but we'll see how what happens by the time we get there.
Does WWE bring Lesnar back if they're not trying to, I mean, let's call it what it is, sabotage AEW?
I don't know what the how the conversation came about. I don't know, like the order stuff. I think likely you would still have had him for a show. So I think it's probably more likely that AJ Lee was the harder push to get that to more buttress that pay-per-view.
And speaking of AJ Lee, let's touch on the last segment. So this show, as I mentioned at the top, was bookended by the two really big segments that are going to have an effect down the line. And we had AJ Lee make her return after days of speculation. The worst kept secret in the business at this point, I think, was her return. All the fans knew it. They were chanting it on Monday when Becky Lynch confronted CM Punk. So even before that whole scene played out that gave AJ Lee a reason for coming back, fans were chanting for her. So, Four Eyes Malone in the chat says, I wish the return wasn't spoiled, but great nonetheless. This was one of these returns where I think, I mean, even if it wasn't spoiled, you could kind of read the tea leaves and see that it was coming.
As of Clash of Paris, as of that finish, there you were going to need a woman to stand up to Becky. Becky was not in any immediate feud at the time, because she had pretty much taken care of Nikki. You're not going to go back to that. So as of that finish, it's like, oh, this is because they're setting up AJ Lee.
Yeah. I mean, even if not, it's one of those things where I kind of think it was almost better spoiled, because you know what's coming, right? And the anticipation of getting there, and you're hanging on every word, and you're saying, okay, they're saying this because she's coming back, that they're going back and forth, and you that anticipation kind of builds because you know where it's going. And this is one of those things where, fans for a long time complain about WWE being too predictable. They like more surprises. And, there's going to be someone out there complaining that, we saw this coming, and that took a lot of the surprise away. But, I think in the grand scheme of things, as you mentioned, the way this is played out makes a ton of sense. And this was the reason for AJ Lee to come back. It's been kind of talked about for a while, ever since Punk came back. Is AJ going to come back? That's a question he's gotten a lot in media interviews. And I think there needed to be a real reason. And the stars have aligned here. Becky Lynch being with Seth Rollins, husband and wife. Rollins and Punk have had a feud for a long time. Lynch now joins Punk, which gives her something to do, but also freshens up the vision. And that's the great door to open to get AJ Lee back in. You've got the mixed tag matches, you've got the one-on-one matches that you can do. So it spurs a lot of different iterations of these four wrestling in some way, which I think is really good. So even though it was spoiled, even though we could see it coming a mile away and it wasn't a surprise by any stretch, I do think the way it played out was very satisfying tonight.
Yeah, and just because he knew at the end of Clash in Paris that it's likely the direction to go, it wasn't really until they spoiled it with the WWE shop. And the other thing I think also contributed to that, I think it was Big E in the post show, said, "Oh, I'm going to talk what everybody's thinking." AJ Lee, they wouldn't let you say her name if things weren't already, because they could, because he could have gone. He was like, okay, well, if it's not her, maybe it could be. Bailey, the people he mentioned, because a lot of people already talked
Rhea
about
Ripley
that.
was somebody that I think, because he had been talking to Rhea Ripley backstage on Raw, I think it was, and I don't know if that was a red herring to get people thinking, oh, maybe it's Ripley and maybe it's not AJ Lee,
and likely if like the deal had fallen through, it probably would have been Ripley.
Mm-hmm.
Because they did set a little bit of that up, but yeah, I mean, at that point. Everybody knew. It was kind of like, when CM Punk debuted in AEW, everybody knew because they all the hints that they had dropped, they just never like officially confirmed it. And it's just like, even though it was going to happen, it was like, it's the air that comes out when you open the coat, that was kind of like the feel to it. This one felt a little bit more when the Coke's gone a little bit flat because the air had already been leaking out, So that was kind of which is a shame, but it was still like, it was still a cool moment for the people who like know who she is. Because I don't.
Do you think Becky didn't really? I mean, maybe she did in the promo, but do you think Becky and Punk should have acknowledged the AJ Lee chance beforehand, or should they have just kind of ignored it and moved on?
Once they acknowledge, again, that's one of those that, like, if they were when they were chanting CM Punk, back in the day, sometimes they would acknowledge it, but it wasn't like you were going to acknowledge it every single time, So yeah, it would have made more sense if, even though it's like not real, because it makes you feel like, oh, this isn't happening. Because that's the thing. Once they start acknowledging and talking about it, it makes you like, oh, it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
If they're still playing coy, yes, I know that's a little meta, and you're going into the metaverse a little bit more because you're dealing with the contract situations, and you don't want to get people's hopes up. They should have pretended like, we don't want to get your hopes up because it's not happening. Because once you bring up her name and you make it kind of like obvious, and something that's also like a Punk talking about, in interviews, instead of like just saying, nah, she's happy at home, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But if they really want to like help, fortify that kind of story, but ultimately it was, people wanted to see it, and then it was, we're talking about like the last 2% of excitement. We're not really, saying that it was a failure or anything. We're talking about like how to make it 2% better. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's just something I thought of as I was watching it. Usually when there's a big surprise and people are chanting for it, like I go back to Lesnar's return when John Cena was in the ring and everybody it was the night after WrestleMania or whatever it was, and he was on Raw, and the fans knew Lesnar was coming out. They're chanting him, and Cena kind of, didn't really acknowledge it because he knew Lesnar was coming out and he didn't want to kind of spoil it by acknowledging that they were chanting for Lesnar. So that's kind of what it reminded me of. That's kind of the other option you could have done if you were Becky Lynch and CM Punk, is to just kind of ignore them because the surprise is coming out. And if you acknowledge it, it's going to confirm to the 2% who didn't know AJ Lee was coming out that she was coming out, and kind of, I don't know if spoil is the right word, but some people might see it that way. So WrestlePalooza coming up. We assume that there's going to be some kind of iteration of these four. Are they going to, is it going to be AJ Becky? Is it going to be a mixed tag match? Are they going to try to do Punk Rollins here? What do you think is the match that comes out of this in the immediate aftermath coming up later this month?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a mixed match challenge, and give. I gotta find that mute button. Sorry. Give the baby faces a chance to get over on Seth, because Punk is not winning this feud. There are a lot more enemies for Seth Rollins to deal with than Punk winning the title back. So I'm expecting that overall Seth Rollins wins the feud. But this will be a bump in the road where they get the happy, feel good win.
A couple comments about the chants. Becky acknowledged the AJ chants on Raw, so tonight was not the first night she did it. Of course, she wasn't coming out on Raw, so a little bit different. Jeremy says, any woman who wasn't AJ Lee was going to get booed out of the state. Yeah, I think if you weren't going to present AJ Lee, and you kind of talked about like the options that were there if AJ Lee, if they couldn't come to an agreement or if she couldn't come in, Rhea Ripley is one, probably number one on the list. just by virtue of being Rhea Ripley, she's probably not going to be booed. But I don't think you'd do the reveal in Chicago. I don't think you would have done that tonight. I think you would have saved that for Raw on Monday or whatever.
Yeah, and I did mention that on the I want to say the one of the post shows where one of the things I didn't really like about the setup was it was on Raw. Yeah, it was after Raw. It was Punk basically saying, when's the next SmackDown, right? Mm-hmm. Because he was saying, I'm going to have, essentially that was like, the biggest tease of like, yeah, I'm going to be there with AJ Lee. And why would have Seth Rollins and Becky been there on SmackDown when that's not their brand? You know what I mean? That felt a little bit contrived, and I was hoping that they had a good reason. They didn't, but oh well, there we are.
Another comment in the chat about Becky's reaction. I would not have had Becky seem so afraid of AJ when she came out. Yeah, I guess like AJ Lee is not the most physically intimidating person, so I'm not sure if that's what Becky was playing up or just the shock of seeing AJ, who is, again, not the most physically intimidating, but she has been shown to be very scrappy in the past. And so maybe there's a little bit of that. Maybe it's just the realization that Becky has barked up the wrong tree and she's gone too far because Punk has brought in his wife now, and now it's become very, very personal. It's not just Punk bringing a friend in. It's not even Punk bringing his sister in, which he surmised that he could do tonight, but it's him bringing his wife in. So it could be a little of that. But did you have a problem with Becky's reaction to AJ's reveal?
It's funny talking about it now. It brought me to mind of the exact same thing that Seth Rollins did when confronted with the Fiend. They were showing way too much fear. They should have been aiming for wary, and they went into fear. And granted, Seth I think went into terror, which made that things even worse. But yeah, I do think it was a bit much because like when they first showed her and she was like, it was more of a reaction of I don't want any of this. But then it kind of like, when she starts like, shaking her legs and, and freaking out. Yeah, that went too much. That went into oversell mode. And at that point it was like, and it's not like we're talking like Becky's a cowardly heel in general. Mm-hmm. So, she'll take the coward's way out, but it's not like that's her defining characteristic. Like that reaction, the reaction she had would be perfect for Chelsea Green, not for Becky Lynch.
Okay, yeah, I just was saying, okay, who's Chelsea Green subbing for in that scenario? So when you said Becky Lynch, I was like, okay, that makes more sense because I can't see Becky Lynch having that reaction if Chelsea Green comes out. No, I meant that we're Chelsea Green and Becky. Yes, okay, that makes a lot more sense. All right, Thank you.
Or if her opponent were someone on the stature of like Rhea Ripley, that would be the other.
Yes, I got you. We're about a half hour into our post show here. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling post show after SmackDown for September 5th, 2025. I am Pro Wrestling Torch columnist Greg Parks. Glad to be with you, subbing for Wade Keller tonight, along with PWTorch.com contributor Javier Machado. If you're watching us live on YouTube, first of all, welcome. Second of all, please feel free to give your thoughts about the show in the chat. You can react to what we're talking about. We'll throw your comment up on the screen if it's something that we're interested in discussing. So always love interacting with fans, just kind of the 2025 way of interacting with a live listening and viewing audience. So a lot of fun to do that. Anything else, Javier, that stood out to you from that last segment before we start going through the rest of the show?
I mean, not particularly. Yeah, I just maybe like for my taste, probably would have not milked the AJ Lee reveal as long as they did. Maybe go into it like a little bit sooner because they got to the point where I'm like, okay, get on with it. Come on.
I was shocked when Punk came out and there were still 10 minutes left in the show.
Yeah,
it kind of felt like his entrance, and I know it's Chicago and he's going to milk it, but it's almost like they were running short and they were like, go out and take extra time on your entrance. Like that's kind of what it felt like they were doing because it got to that point and I'm like, man, they got 10 minutes more. I know the AJ Lee reveal is coming, but they got 10 minutes more of material here. Like, and then Becky goes into the insulting the local sports teams. And I'm thinking, boy, it felt a little bit like they were padding it out at times. Maybe I'm wrong, but all of these things that we're talking about, the Becky Lynch reaction, the reaction to the chants of AJ Lee, the vamping for extra time, these are all nitpicks. Like, I don't want anyone listening to think that, we're trying to tear apart this final segment, because ultimately I think it worked on a lot of levels. It was super entertaining. The reveal was great. It's going to build a lot of interesting stuff for the future. I'm super pumped to see Punk versus Rollins and AJ Lee back. And, I see Punk versus Rollins as a WrestleMania match. I know there's some question, can they stretch it out that long? Certainly involving AJ and Becky is going to be able to pad things out a little longer. But do you see the ultimate resolution, such as it is, between these two coming at WrestleMania?
It's a possibility. I mean, you probably have to take a detour somewhere along the line. Although, I don't know, man. Can you get to Reigns by that point? It would be my question.
Reigns
and Seth Rollins.
Okay.
I'm assuming Reigns will now be going after Breaker, and then after that, clearing that hurdle and going after Rollins. I think Reigns and Rollins is a stronger bet for WrestleMania, but yeah, I think Punk and Rollins would probably be my second bet.
So if not WrestleMania, where do you think? I mean, this Punk Rollins feud has been going for so long. It feels like WrestleMania is the only possible place where you could blow it off. So if it's not at WrestleMania, where do you see it taking place?
I have no idea what's between now and then. I'll have to look that up.
Fair enough. But do you have a time? Do you have a time frame? Like, is it like before WrestleMania? Is it after? Maybe next year's SummerSlam?
Depending on where the pay-per-views line up. I mean, if you get a pay-per-view and headline it with like a Hell in a Cell between the two of them,
mm-hmm.
And have that be like the headliner of, I actually, what I should be doing is looking up AEW's pay-per-view schedule, see what they're going to kind of book.
Of course.
But yeah, so because let me see, there's that's the NXT, that's an NXT. I don't think it's going to be a Saturday night main event. That would be well,
not that they're on Peacock now, and they're not even on NBC, so that makes them even less important.
Yeah. So, oh man, those are going to be coming collisions, or whatever they used to be called. But I don't know what pay per view would be, but I could see it like in between I know there's the Perth pay per view. I know there's Survivor Series. I don't know where it'll be, but I could see it be like a Hell in a Cell kind of match between the two of them, and on what would be a little bit lower level pay per view to try to boost that up.
One thing that I can be almost sure of is that it won't be at the event that Kyle suggested in the chat. It will headline Great Balls of Fire 2025.
Yes.
Great Balls of Fire, thankfully one and done is a pay-per-view concept. So I hope we can cross that off the list, but who knows? If AEW comes up with another pay-per-view, WWE might just resurrect that one again. Who knows?
Yep. Yeah, that was actually a question on the fix, bringing back old pay-per-views and listening to some of those ECW names was wild.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I believe we have our on-site correspondent here. So before we get to the rest of the show, and yes, there were other things that happened on this episode of SmackDown. We do have Matt here, who was at the show in Chicago. Matt, are you with us?
I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you just fine. Thank you for contributing here tonight and being our on-site correspondent for SmackDown in Chicago. Very big show. Brock Lesnar comes back. John Cena's final episode of SmackDown, final time in Chicago. The return of AJ Lee. What was the big takeaway from the fans as they were leaving the arena tonight?
Well, I went to the show with my brother here, and I think we were kind of saying on the way out, the opening, obviously, with Cena and Lesnar was electric and amazing. And then the ending with Punk and AJ Lee and Seth and Becky, that was also just so much fun and a thrill to see. So everything in between, though, was kind of forgettable. But the bookends of the show were amazing.
Matt, it's like you've been listening to the first 40 minutes of this show, because all we've talked about so far were the first and last segments. We haven't even gotten to the rest of the show yet because we've taken so much time on those. So I'm glad that matches with your live experience. Speaking of the bookends of that show, the beginning, John Cena, Sami Zayn, U.S. title match. Sami Zayn getting booed. That's been a topic that we've talked about here tonight. What was your perspective as to why Sami Zayn was getting booed by Chicago tonight?
I think it was just because he was up against Cena. I think you could have put probably anyone out there. It was Cena's night. I think putting in perspective, him debuting in Chicago, this being his last SmackDown, I think everyone was on his side tonight, and it didn't really matter who went out there. Sami just unfortunately had to take the brunt of it. But I think it was probably just a victim of circumstance.
Yeah, that's been one of the suggestions that was brought up as the reason to why Sami was getting booed tonight, so I'm glad you could confirm that. Brock Lesnar interfering. Now, the match lasted about 20 minutes. Did you sense any frustration from the fans of not getting a clean finish to that match, or were people just excited to see Brock Lesnar?
Yeah, Lesnar got heat. Definitely people booed him. I think he got more boos than he would normally just get kind of the cheers of, oh, this is awesome that Brock Lesnar's here. I feel like he did get his due of boos. I think the match was amazing, just from a fun, just Cena hitting all those different finishers, and it was just a lot of fun. And I think maybe most fans realize, like, Sami can't lose this thing, Cena can't become U.S. champ, and I think it was just kind of like they were okay with how things went.
Javier, any questions for Matt from his live perspective tonight?
No, my biggest question was the Sami Zayn question that I would have. The crowd definitely did seem deflated for the two matches in the middle, so that kind of goes with the. Was that your impression?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you guys from watching on TV for the Priest and Aleister Black match. I'm sure you saw the angle where Black, hit Priest before he made it down, but I don't know if it went to commercial after that, because Priest basically stood in the aisle or the entrance ramp with, refs and other people around, basically acting like, a drunk person like that, and he was kind of trying to, fight them off of him to get into the ring, and he did that for so long, and it just kind of became awkward, and Black just sort of just stood in the ring. So I don't know if that came across on TV or not, but I feel like that really hurt the match, because it seems like as soon as they rang the bell, it just seemed really awkward from the live perspective, because all of a sudden Priest sort of just like snapped out of it. So it was just a really long, awkward segment.
Yeah, we did have a commercial in there. I think they came back from break right before Priest rushed the ring. So all of that you were describing must have taken place during commercial, so that would explain it.
Okay, yeah, I felt like that hurt the match, because it was so long and awkward that it just took people out of it, I feel like. Because I felt like they got, okay responses when they came out, but it seemed like that really deflated it.
I thought that, I honestly felt bad for Michin and Julia. The crowd could not, Priest and Black, I thought there was a better reaction to that match. They did the double down spot with Julia and Michin where the crowds usually are cued to chant, "This is awesome," and they didn't, and I felt so bad for those women. Part of it is they just haven't been built up as characters to where fans care about them. But I felt like a big part of it was that crowd tonight was there to see John Cena and CM Punk / AJ Lee. And anything else that happened didn't really matter. Is that kind of the impression you got?
Yeah, definitely. I felt like the Julia Michin match was solid, from a wrestling standpoint. And I thought they had a couple pretty cool, innovative spots. But, yeah, there was just such a lull in between Cena and then the Seth and Punk segment. It was just everyone was kind of sitting on their hands most of the time.
For the last segment, so much of the crowd was chanting for AJ Lee. They knew she was coming. Did that lack of surprise kind of take away the joy of her return? It certainly didn't sound like it. Fans were on the edge of their seat waiting for her to come out, knowing that she was going to come out. But do you think it would have been better as a surprise, or was it cool to be in that atmosphere knowing that you're going to get a big return and like everybody's feeling it?
It was absolutely incredible. I feel like the anticipation just made it that much better. You could feel just sort of a buzz in the crowd, and then it just kept getting louder and louder, and you could tell, with Punk sort of saying, you don't think I can call a friend, and I feel like they totally fed into it, and it seemed like that just built the anticipation. I was talking with my brother on the way out. AJ Lee's, I know, it's a surprise return sort of, and people haven't seen her in a long time. That pop felt louder than Cena's. From our perspective, at least, we were up in the upper deck in the corner, but it was like it got really loud, like to where you just thought this is as loud as it can get, and then it got a little bit louder, and it was just really, really cool to be there for that. It was just amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing to watch on TV. It was a really cool moment there. Just how many Chicago events have you been to for WWE?
Oh man, probably close to, I would say maybe 10 or 12 now.
So you've seen, has CM Punk been at a lot of them? Or is it like when Punk was gone from WWE?
I was there for quite a few without Punk being there. And then I've been here, I think, at every show since Punk's been back. Every show that they've come to Chicago, I've been there.
Okay. What was the crowd like tonight in terms of numbers? Did you see many empty seats, or was it a pretty packed house?
It was like standing room only. Every
Wow.
seat was filled. They had every seat. Even I think Cena made a gesture to people in the limited viewing seats behind, like the Megatron, where the entrance where they come out. That was all full, and there was people just standing up even behind the back rows. So it was. I think they advertised over 16,000 or something. But it was full.
And do you attribute that to Cena's last time in Chicago? Is that probably the big reason?
I think, definitely that's a huge part of it. Because I came to one of the shows, I think when they were here for Smackdown maybe a few months back, and it was full, but it wasn't this full. So I think definitely Cena being advertised really just made it a must-see.
Anything else interesting happen from a live perspective that we may not have seen on television that you want to bring up here tonight?
They did they did a dark match before, a WWE main event match before the show, and that was, give me 1 second, I actually wrote it down. That was Angel and Ray Phoenix, and then Berto was ringside for that. Ray Phoenix won that one clean, and then after the show they had the Street Profits and the Motor City Machine Guns teamed up against the Wyatt Six, and then the Profits and Motor City won that one. And then the final match was AJ Styles versus Kofi Kingston, and Xavier Woods was out there. And then they had a disqualification pretty quickly where Xavier came in and broke up a pin. And then Fatu came out. Jacob Fatu came out, and then he said that he wanted to make it a tag match, him and AJ versus Kofi and Xavier. And then Kofi said, "We'll only do it if you make it a tornado tag match." And then they tried to do a little bit of a comedy spot. AJ said, "What the hell's a tornado tag match?" And then they were like, "Oh, I think you would know that since you've been here for a while." And then they ended up doing the match, and then Fatu put Xavier through a table with a splash to end that one, and that was the two dark matches there.
Awesome. Just a couple questions from the chat. BJ says he has a couple questions for you about the live experience. what merch was being sold and who was the most merch being worn. So I'm assuming CM Punk, maybe it's John Cena for it being his last night in Chicago, but for the merch that people were wearing, the T-shirts and things like that, who did you notice the most of?
Definitely, yeah. The most was we saw a lot of CM Punk and a lot of Cena.
Okay.
Pretty much between both of them.
And he also wants to know, what were the biggest chants in the concourse? Was it woo? Was it yeet? Was it yeah? Or something else?
No yeahs at all.
Oh, wow.
Some woos, definitely some yeets, and then just people were chanting, CM Punk and AJ Lee they were chanting AJ Lee before the show even started. So.
Is that someone's car alarm going off? I hope it's not someone honking at
Sorry,
you.
we're still in the parking lot. We're just sitting here.
Okay.
Someone's trying to find their car, I think.
Fair enough. Yeah, parking lots, trust me. Like, I go into a grocery store and I come out 5 minutes later and I have no idea which direction I park, so I totally get that. Javier, any final questions you have for Matt on the live experience tonight?
No, that dark match sounded wild, man. New Day Fatu and AJ Styles. I wish I were there to watch that one. That sounded fun.
Yeah, we were all just like Fatu, and then everyone went nuts for Fatu, so we were like, all right.
Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you for volunteering to be our on-site correspondent tonight and calling us in from the car in the parking lot. Hope you get home in the next, hour and a half? I don't know.
Who knows?
Yeah. It can be tricky sometimes. I get it. So thank you for joining us once again.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, so always good to get a live perspective on these things because they can kind of answer some questions we have as we're watching the show, as Matt did there. So interesting stuff. Javier, let's go through the rest of the show here because, as I mentioned, other things did happen on this show, although you may not remember them a week from now. You may not even remember them right now because
I probably won't remember them right now.
Some of them felt a little bit inconsequential, especially in comparison to John Cena's final SmackDown and AJ Lee's return. So we did have, as Matt was talking about, the Damian Priest-Aleister Black match. Black attacks before the match. Priest has to regain his bearings. The ref kind of cruelly calls for the bell when Damian Priest is clearly out of it. He throws a wild punch that is nowhere near Aleister Black. So who knows what kind of injuries he was suffering from there, and yet the ref lets the match go on. I'm not sure about that.
Who knows on call for calling that out,
Yeah.
He was selling that. He was selling like he was concussed so hard that Cole's like, the ref should really be checking this out. That was at that point he had sold that hard. I'm like, thought crossed my mind.
So Aleister Black ends up winning in about 10 minutes. It was cleanish. Black ended up grabbing the ref to prevent an offensive maneuver by Damian Priest. Ends up getting the victory there. So I don't know, man. Like, Aleister Black and Rusev are they're both guys coming back from AEW, and I think there was a lot of anticipation of them returning to WWE, and under Triple H's guidance, maybe they'll be a bigger deal than they were under Vince McMahon. But both of those guys, to me, are really struggling to find their footing. I mean, I like Damian Priest, I like Aleister Black, but this feud is not exactly knocking my socks off or anything like that. And then I think about Rusev and his feud with Sheamus, and I like Rusev and I like Sheamus, but there just wasn't much to the feud other than just two guys brawling all the time, which is actually a feud we've seen quite a bit in recent past. Although I did really like their PLE match, the good old fashioned Donnybrook. So, Aleister Black, is he just kind of destined to be a nice mid-card act and nothing more? Or do you think even now he still has some upward mobility?
I mean, what you just referenced with particularly Aleister Black, less Rusev, but definitely Aleister Black. I'm like, I wonder if is Triple H booking? I don't know.
Here come the conspiracy theories.
Because this definitely feels more like what they were doing beforehand, just a lot cleaned up and a lot better. Minus the god awful finishes, which I got a couple more to add to my my list. But yeah, and I don't know, something he said during the promo to set this match up, that he said, I came back to WWE expecting for there to be change, and it's the same bleep, basically, is what he said. And I'm like, are we like that a little shoot in that comment there?
Yeah, a little too meta, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, a little bit shoot into that. And to be honest, I think this should have been a much better. I don't know who to blame for it, because both of them are goth kind of characters, so they could have probably brought a lot more of that kind of out of themselves. And I'm expecting more for that feud. I should be more into it. It doesn't really feel like it's been presented very well at all. So it doesn't help with that you started with the whole truth thing, and that was never even resolved either. It kind of feels very much like a mess, and I'm ready for them to move on to something else before this actually ends up tarnishing both of them.
It does feel like a situation where WWE says, okay, we've got Damian Priest. He's gotten to be a big star now. Aleister Black, we're probably paying him good money. Got him from AEW. Kind of feel like we need to do something with these guys. So let's just put them together. Let's have them feud. Let's put them on TV doing something, so that if a spot does open up and we have an idea for them, boom, we can move them right into that. But it doesn't feel like a lot of thought and effort and time is being given into crafting this particular storyline.
Yeah, it's almost better if they were to go to NXT for a bit, and help somebody out down there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just I'm kind of already ready for this feud to move to their next opponents.
Derek chiming in, AJ Lee's return is trending on SportsCenter. I think that sort of thing is going to happen a lot more often now, with the partnership between WWE and ESPN getting even deeper than it had been. So it won't surprise me if we are talking about that frequently on Friday nights, and certainly on PLE nights. About the Black feud, Brock in the chat says, I feel like Black needed this win. I can't really argue with that. Kyle is loving the push for Aleister Black. Kyle also says that Rusev is struggling a lot more than Black. I think it's pretty equal. I think Rusev got the big win, and I kind of feel the same way about Rusev at the pay-per-view that Brock felt about Aleister Black tonight, where he needed that win. Rusev needed that win over Sheamus in that Donnybrook match at the PLE, just as much as Aleister Black, I thought, needed the win over Damian Priest here tonight, even though it wasn't clean. Sadler says, Aleister Black is a mid-carder, in my opinion. A creepy gimmick like his should be mowing through people, not having competitive matches. He's been around long enough to know he's not a main eventer by now. Do you agree with that?
On this level, with the people that WWE has, yes, I don't think he's and the time he's already been around. I wouldn't even put him like. I wouldn't even put him like on levels of like LA Knight, where LA Knight to me is like top of the mid card that could visit the top. I don't think Aleister Black is at that level right now. You could get him there. I'm a person who believes that with the right lens and everything, falling into place, anybody can be pushed to the okay, not anybody, because Ellsworth or people like that. But just about anybody could get up there for at least a taste of the top.
Yeah.
But where he is right now and where he's kind of floundering, yes, he would basically have to do the old Bob Holly, let me, give me the title, let me beat everybody to get over kind of thing for him right now as things are. But yeah.
So next up was a video package focusing on Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre, and it turns out
that it was a commercial.
Well, it turns out that Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre is now booked in a singles one-on-one match for next week's SmackDown. Javier, I want the odds that there's a clean finish in that match.
0.
You probably have a better chance of winning the lottery than getting a clean finish out of that match.
Yeah, that would be 0. Does Cody come back, maybe?
Yeah, I've seen that speculation already on social media that's how that match ends, with Cody Rhodes returning and going after Drew McIntyre.
Yeah. So the only other thing I could think of is similar to what happened with Black and McIntyre pulls the trigger as was part of the thing and takes out Randy Orton before the match and injures him, and then Orton's out for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, also for next week, Brock Lesnar will be on the show making an appearance, whatever that means, who knows. And then Tiffany Stratton versus Jade Cargill. They had a backstage segment right after this where Jade said Tiffany would not have won at SummerSlam had her foot not been on the rope. And then Nia Jax shows up and goes face-to-face with Jade Cargill, and Cargill told Nia that when she wins the title, Jax will have a shot at her. So that brings us to our super chat from Sean from Murfreesboro, Tennessee, frequent contributor here on the post shows. He says, what do we think about Tiffany and Jade fighting for the title again? Neither woman feels very big right now, and who wins? I would give Jade a chance. It kind of feels like, unless you do a non-finish, which we can't rule out, it kind of feels like if you're going back to that Jade Cargill versus Tiffany Stratton, well, again, Jade's got to win. Just to keep that aura up, really. I don't know how else you get out of that. But what's your take on them doing Tiffany Stratton and Jade Cargill so soon after Stratton won? And is this a match that Jade has to win?
If you're going to keep her around, be meaningful in any way, yes. Because the way that she lost at SummerSlam almost felt like a message. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it was meant to be a message to the actual person or just, like, we're not going with you right now kind of thing. But because they have booked a rematch, I don't see. I mean, you could have something happen where Jade goes full blown heel. So that's how you keep the title away from her, where she has essentially she beats her down. She beats Tiffany so badly that the ref calls off the match, kind of thing. And for whatever reason, don't do a title change. So maybe a heel turn might be in the cards because Jade's kind of been a little bit more aggressive lately. So that might be a direction. I think today was like the least. Let me see how I can phrase this. The least I've disliked them. So, which is saying a lot. I thought they were both fine. They kept things short and sweet and to the point of what was going on. Didn't get too cute with coming up with a lot of stuff. I mean, they both referenced their, like she, the storm is coming and I am the storm and that sort of stuff. But it wasn't like drawn out 15. Neither of them need to be 15 minutes inside of a ring, cutting promos with each other. This was what it needed to be. And I mean, give it to Jade, see what she can do with it. And if not, like as a lot of people are saying, cut bait.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing is, Bianca Belair has been out since WrestleMania with broken fingers. We know that Bianca and Jade had been teaming together and Naomi was involved, and there was this big three-way kind of to-do over that. Naomi putting Jade Cargill on the shelf, and now Naomi's out of the equation, getting ready to have a baby, so she's not going to come in and attack Jade Cargill. So, does Bianca Belair come in? Does she kind of turn heel and cost Jade Cargill, for whatever reason, the title here? That's a past relationship that could come out in this match. So just trying to think of all the ways that Jade could come out of this not winning, but also not feeling like she's completely buried. And I think there are very few scenarios that I can think of. A heel turn is potentially one of them. But there's not many. There's not many where she comes out of this looking fine and not taking the title. And at this point, it's not like Tiffany Stratton's lighting the world on fire as champion. She's had a pretty decent run lengthwise. Why not switch the title and give it to Jade Cargill and give her a run and see what she can do? And I talked a lot about leading into that first Jade Cargill Tiffany Stratton match, how this is a real test for Cargill and how WWE sees her. And at the time, she loses the match. It's felt like, as you mentioned, that was a message maybe to Jade Cargill that she wasn't ready for being the top dog on SmackDown in the women's division. But at this point, it's like, why not? Why not put it on her and see what she can do? And give her some fresh opponents and put her in shorter matches. I mean, just because she's champion, she doesn't have to go 10, 15 minutes like other champions have gone. So I don't really see the harm. I don't think it's going to hurt Tiffany Stratton. Like I said, she's been champion for quite a while, and she's been on top of the division. You can quibble about the quality of her reign at this point. I think that's fair. But I don't think it's really going to hurt her to have her lose to Jade Cargill in this scenario.
I mean, the other have they said when this match is happening?
Is it next week?
But it's on a show. It's not on not WrestlePalooza or anything. Like
is it next week's? I think next week's SmackDown, right?
Okay, so because we're not going to get a real finish for that, there's not going to be a title change. I could see a situation where Jade actually loses again. In a gets rolled up, slips up banana peel, loses her patience, beats the hell out of Tiffany Stratton, and then that would be her heel turn. And then she could start feuding with Bianca Belair, who's like, what are you doing? What's up? And try to calm her down, and then just Jade take it on Bianca Belair too, if she's ready to come back. And then at that point, because my question is like, okay, so what if she gets past Jade, and you're not going to give the title to Jade? Who's Stratton's next opponent? Yeah. Because I don't see anybody on the roster off the top of my head. So do you call up one of the women from NXT, like a Jordan Grace or something like that? That could be another thing. Because I mean, I would have said Julia, but Julia's the U.S. champion, and unfortunately with that match with Michin, I think that's not. I don't think too many people are clamoring for Julia right now.
No, and that's unfortunate because she is so incredibly talented. But that's the next match that we'll talk about here is United States Championship match, Michin versus Julia. Michin won over Kiana James last week in a flash pin on a roll up to earn this opportunity against Julia here tonight. And we talked with our live correspondent Matt about this and about how the crowd just. Look, they were there for John Cena, CM Punk, and AJ Lee, and they knew that it was getting close to the time that CM Punk and AJ Lee were going to come out, and I think their patience with the rest of the show had worn thin by this point because I don't remember a crowd that so quiet, I guess, like as they were for this. They were not reacting to anything, even as I mentioned, the spot that these days almost automatically gets a reaction for a match of any length. And this match went 8 minutes. So you're talking, the 6 or 7 minute mark. They're probably doing the double down where both are on the mat. And this is where, fans will start hooting and hollering. Some who weren't even paying attention to the match before will start chanting, "This is awesome," because it's like Pavlov's dogs and they see two wrestlers laying on the mat and they must think, "Oh, this is the spot where I do this," Nothing during that spot. So I truly felt bad. I think the Kiana James pairing has hurt Julia more than it's helped because I think it kind of defines Julia down because no one sees Kiana James as anything more than just kind of like a bottom of the roster player as a wrestler. And so I don't think that's really doing anything for her. Michin, she's had her moments. She had a really good feud with Chelsea Green, I thought, that WWE didn't really capitalize on with her. I think if they had use that as a springboard for her to do something more. I think that was kind of their opportunity to catch lightning in a bottle with her, but they didn't. They kind of let her linger on the sidelines again. And here we are with the crowd not reacting to her. So I'm certainly not blaming the lack of character development 100% because I do think a different crowd may have reacted differently than Chicago waiting for CM Punk. But I also do think it speaks to a certain extent to the characters that Julia and Michin have right now and the lack of connection they have with the audience.
Yeah, I have not been a fan of Michin since her name was Jade over on Impact. She's I don't know, she just hasn't caught on. I don't think her personality's come through right, and so she's kind of she's like the tool in the toolbox you bring out when you just kind of needed to give Julia an opponent that she could just beat. So that's just what This was just a match so that Julia could have a match and say she's defending the title. It didn't feel like anything, and I think ultimately because it feels like it's not even like a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth thought. I think when you book a wrestler with and you barely paying attention to because it's like your least important priority, you're telling me that Julia's your least important priority, and her with what's her name, Kiana James?
Yes.
Okay, when I finally remembered, I could remember that for my podcast. I was like, I'm not even gonna bother. Because she's coming across like a more of a comedic role more than anything. And it's just not. You're right. It doesn't really fit like what they're doing with her. I mean, because I think her gimmick is kind of like a businesswoman kind of thing.
Yeah.
Would have been great if she just got a bunch of women together and basically became like the Don Callis but for women in WWE. And have a stable of women that have. How can I phrase this? That have harder times with either language or getting the personality across. Something like that. Although even her, I'm not so sure. Like, if she's good enough, personality in order to,
Well, that's what I was going to say. She doesn't have the presence. She doesn't have the charisma. She doesn't have the mic skills of a Don Callis. So it's going to be a real poor man's Don Callis.
Yeah. So it kind of this whole thing just feels just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah. Sean in the chat, going back a little bit, he brought up Julia and says, what have you guys thought of Julia so far? Haven't loved it, but it's super early. I mean, kind of early, but she's been a character on TV for several months now. So I don't know that we can really use that as an excuse anymore, but I certainly think, there's always going to be the comparison from here on out of Julia and Stephanie Vaquer. They debuted on NXT very close together. They were called up to the main roster very close together. And Stephanie Vaquer is going out and having great matches, getting great reactions on Monday Night Raw. And Julia is wrestling Michin on SmackDown to no reaction. And granted, Julia is United States champion, so that means something. But I was expecting Julia to be a little further ahead than she is right now as a character with a push on SmackDown. And maybe SmackDown's women's division is deeper than Raw's, and maybe that's part of the issue. But I have not really been impressed with the presentation of Julia so far. I don't know that it's anything she's doing wrong necessarily. But when you look at the presentation of Stephanie Vaquer on Raw, and then you look at the presentation of Julia on SmackDown, it does feel quite different.
Yeah, she feels like she's in the same boat as Rey Fenix, Dragon Lee, that are not getting enough meaningful minutes on TV. I know she's been on TV, but I don't think she's, they've been meaningful. And like you said, not her fault outside of the fact that the language issues, but that's a different kind of fault. That's just an issue you have to work around.
And they've done it before. They've done it with Asuka. They've done it with Io Sky.
Yeah, let's not bring up Asuka and her yelling. So.
Well, no, but I mean, it is not stopping her from getting a push or anything.
I know what you mean. It's just it kind of felt like an afterthought, and it doesn't help that the other women's mid card title feels like even higher than the big title over on SmackDown. Mm-hmm. So the what is the Intercontinental? Doesn't feel like the Intercontinental, which Becky's holding, feels bigger than both the titles of SmackDown.
Yeah, that's a problem too. I agree with that. I mean, really, that was it for SmackDown tonight. Then it goes back to the main event, which we've spent quite a bit of time talking about. The main event segment, I should say. Is there anything that we missed here tonight, Javier? I've started some comments in the chat that I do want to get to. But is there anything that I missed or glossed over that you think is worth pointing out here?
Yeah, I mean, since we nitpicked the hell out of the I was going to say Cody, the CM Punk thing. I thought it was effective, like you did for the to get the Seth Rollins and Punk thing, keep fire on that, and again, don't know about WrestleMania, but we'll see.
Yeah. So BJ says, really great show tonight. Best SmackDown in a while. The consensus seems to be that this was a pretty good show. Darrell in the chat says this was a good SmackDown. AJ Lee did enough to sell the match without having to do too much. Sean also said, good show tonight. Fun show. Didn't love the Cena match. Loved AJ coming back. She looked great. Yeah, I mean, AJ Lee, for all the time that she spent away, she was in fantastic shape. So you got to give that to her as well.
That was another thing that kind of spoiled it, because I think there were some pictures online about her getting in shape, and people were like, "Oh, she's obviously coming back. She's in great shape." So it's like,
yeah, no, I mean, kudos to her. She looked fantastic, and so I think if we're rating this on a scale of good show, not good show, certainly the bookends were strong. I guess it depends on how much weight you want to give those versus the rest of the show. Because the rest of the show was just, and maybe intentionally so, the rest of the show was just sort of there, to get you from point A to point B. But would you call this a good show?
Yeah, overall, I would say it was a good show. I wouldn't call it, I think what they said on, they kept pushing in commentary that, this is going to be a memorable, remember for all times, kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe not that much, but... Certain moments, yeah, because, they're just historical, but...
Yeah. A couple other comments before we get out of here that I thought were kind of thought-provoking and wanted to get your opinion on. Danny in the chat says, is AJ Lee long-term, medium-term, or short-term? Just here for the WrestlePalooza match, or maybe that, then a singles versus Becky, and maybe a singles versus Rhea, or part of the regular roster? I think that's going to be a key question going forward. I'm not sure she's someone who's going to come back full time. That doesn't strike me as I think she's like 38 years old. I'm not sure that that's something that really interests her, but certainly you'll get the mixed tag match. Certainly you'll get the AJ Lee versus Becky Lynch match. There are other intriguing matches. She's from a different generation. So you're plopping her down into this new generation of wrestlers, and there's a lot of wrestlers who probably would love to face her, and who haven't faced her before. That might be intriguing matches. Do you think that's enough to kind of keep her around for 6 months, a year, beyond just what she's doing with her husband?
I think it's likely for sure just the mixed match and probably a match with Becky. But she's put in the work, and if she gets, a lot of wrestlers says sometimes you get bit by the wrestling bug, and maybe it reawakens that, and she looks up, sees the matchups, and particularly I can see the other women wrestlers who really want to wrestle her, like try to, twist her arm and try to say, hey, I want to match with you. Can we do this? I can see that happen for a bit.
We have Derek in the chat says, I'd love to see AJ Lee and her daughter Roxanne Perez have some screen time. So Roxanne Perez feels like kind of the next generation of AJ Lee almost. We have
there's been a lot of stuff in the house shows that's been going on with that stuff.
Okay. We have love to see AJ versus Liv, says JC Scooby in the chat. We have CJ throwing out, shouting out Bailey as a potential opponent for AJ Lee.
That's like AJ versus Liv, like AJ Styles. I'm like, no, okay, we're talking about AJ. That's why that's why McMahon never liked having people with the same names.
Exactly. How many Adams do we need in AEW? That's.
I mean, the Braun situation, they cut one, but the Braun situation is definitely rough.
Yes. So, I mean, people in the chat already excited, kind of fantasy booking future matches for AJ Lee, which is kind of interesting. So, I tend to think that, you might get. I think so. I think you're going to have AJ around for the Becky Seth stuff. I think that you could maybe bring her back for some big matches after that. But I don't think she's going to go, from AJ Lee and Becky, and I don't think she's going to go from that into boom, another just normal feud. I think she goes away for a while, and if there's a reason for her to come back, maybe she comes back. But ultimately, it's going to be up to her. I think WWE would love to have her. Clearly, the fans are crazy about her, so it's really all about AJ Lee and what she wants. So we'll see how that goes. And we have Kyle in the chat, AJ Lee versus AJ Styles versus AJ Francis. So that's just a triple threat of chaos, I think is what we call that. The other comment, Danny, it says, Wade's been banging the drum of WWE booking being all about viral moments. Is Punk, oddly enough, actually the perfect guy for them in this era, since that's his thing going back literal decades? The moments thing, I wrote a column in the Torch newsletter about, or was it a Parks' take on PWTorch.com? One of those, some piece of written work that I did recently for the Torch was all about not only WWE, but AEW sort of angling for those moments and playing up the moments more so than the results of matches and sort of championships, taking second fiddle to the moments that are created. And Punk, I think Punk is the moments guy. He's created a lot of moments, but I don't think it's at the expense of wanting to win titles. He's always been a guy who's been very title focused, and who's been very, think about the main event of WrestleMania and how much that meant to him. So yes, I think maybe in a meta sense, Punk is about moments, but I think CM Punk, the character on television, is definitely still charged up about winning matches and winning championships. Even though he's from a newer generation, he has a very old school way of thinking. And so I think that's kind of been ingrained in him, the idea of the importance of championships and the importance of wins and losses, and how do you as a wrestling character react to those wins and losses. So I think he's maybe an amalgam of the two. I mean, he's created his share of moments for sure over the years, but those moments have not been at the expense of the story and been at the expense of winning matches or winning championships. It's not Joe Hendry coming out the day after WrestleMania and celebrating the fact that he was on WrestleMania, glossing over the fact that he lost to Randy Orton in 3 minutes. It's not one of those situations, I think, with Punk.
Yeah, I think maybe if he had come around this era, I think he probably would have been fit more of that. Because his moments were more of the promo line that went too far across the line, that kind of thing. That was kind of more of his. That was kind of more of his thing.
That was the viral moment we had before we had viral moments.
Yeah, so it's and that's the frustrating thing is that it's not just the WWE is doing that, because Mike's also been banging that drum over when I have him on acknowledging WWE, and I agree with him. Because it's not just WWE, it's like entertainment in general, or popular entertainment in general. You're looking for the viral dance. You're looking for the thing that pops on the trailer, even though once you're put in the movie, it makes no sense. A lot of it is like that. And it's was it? It might have been my brother. My feed is full of the picture of Sheamus doing the white noise off of the barrels, and that was specifically there to become a moment that's shared over and over again. And it seems like a lot of stuff that they do, a lot of moments are for that, to get that reaction. And one of the things, because they showed it during, I think we were talking, early on, and I really, really wish that WWE would not show React streamers.
Oh,
I hate that. I hate React streamers so much, because it's all either the person is either so obviously over the top, and it's just like an evolution of the Undertaker guy. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to be the Undertaker guy. And every single reaction,
or the Brock Lesnar guy, or whatever.
And everybody is trying to outdo the other one, and I do not like the idea that they're going to start showing React streamers reacting to what happened in Clash in Paris. Because I think it was when they were showing with the Becky being the one that helped Rollins win, and they started showing React streamers please no, because it's going to be just a constant people just trying to overdo each other. And I just know I'm not here for that.
So Danny clarifying, he just meant that it's weird that the guy who was so anti-WWE for so long is now somehow the poster child of the TKO era. I mean, that's not the first time I've heard that from people about Punk. And
by the way, you meant where the match could be a blow off when Royal Rumble, which is in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Punk coming back and going to Saudi Arabia after making some very pointed comments in the past about those who go to Saudi Arabia, sort of started that whole interaction about,
See,
Punk, the
my
more
issue
extreme.
with Sami Zayn, in a kayfabe way, is the same issue I have with the, Punk doing that, in a more shoot way, partially kayfabe, but also shoot way. So that's kind of why I'm like hard on Sami Zayn, because I felt it was being hard on Sami Zayn until Chicago vindicated me for much of the same reason. He's like, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and then you turn around. I was hard on Drew McIntyre, the match that he lost when he was trying to get the title back from Lashley. That McIntyre said, I lost the last one because I got distracted. I promised not to get distracted this next time. And then he gets distracted again. At that point, you lost all credibility as a babyface. That's like one of those things where you used to talk a lot about in old school wrestling that you don't promise what you don't if you're not going to deliver. So Sami Zayn, I'm sorry, people in the audience for keeping harping on this. I think that part of it could be the fact that Sami Zayn, was kind of teasing. Yeah, I want the big title. I haven't had it yet, and we kind of want to see that storyline, and then all of a sudden you're back a level. No fault of his own. This is no fault of his own. It's fault of the booking and the people he has around him. So, but I think people got frustrated at that, and they're unfortunately taking out Sami Zayn. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see next week.
Derek pointing out WWE is specialized in viral moments over having great matches. The meeting of the Mega Powers, Macho Man proposing to Miss Elizabeth, The Rock and Hollywood Hogan staring down at WrestleMania 18. Hogan and Andre face-to-face was viral moment before it was a thing. So, look, my issue isn't with WWE creating these viral moments. I'm fine with it. My issue is them prioritizing the moments over winning and losing and over telling good stories. Hogan and Andre, WrestleMania 3, how important was Hogan winning that match? That was huge for Hogan moving forward. It's not like Hogan lost and came out and talked about what a great moment it was to be in the ring with Andre the Giant and get to slam him. No, he won the match. So I think that's one of the key differences. But also, and it's the John Cena thing from WWE's Netflix show, right? Everybody, the moment was John Cena turning heel, but what was the follow-up? The follow-up was crap. So the moment, they're booking for the moment, and they have absolutely no idea what the follow-up is going to be because they're so focused on the moment, they're not focused on telling a complete and thorough story all the way through. That's where I have a problem with it. Not so much creating the moment itself, because as Derek pointed out, historically, that's what WWE has done, and that's what you try to do as any company. But it's doing that at the expense of wins and losses mattering, at the expense of telling a good story.
The important thing is to define what we mean by viral moments, because a viral moment can come across, can evolve naturally. And so the Mega Powers, Mega Powers coming together is not the same thing, because you already had the story of the top guy in Hogan and the top guy in Randy Savage, and they finally, cross paths and how they react to each other. And that led to the whole tag team thing, the breakup. That was a whole storyline. It's what you said, Greg, that you didn't have the follow-up from anything that was involving The Rock. You just had that moment, and he even mentioned that we're all about making moments. It's just to get that moment. Sometimes they're followed up on. It's what I think is, when I say viral moment in reference to this, I'm talking about something that is not set up or not set up well, and the whole purpose is to get that one snapshot in time that you could put on the actual trailer, where you could put on the opening of the segment without any follow-up or anything coming up, where you remember the guy going through the table, but you don't know what got you there. That's a different animal from because any story's gonna have moments that you're gonna remember. No, I am your father. That would be a viral moment, but it's not like it came out of, well, okay, that one kind of came out of nowhere, but it also told a story and was in part of everything they were doing. It's different from what Wade is hitting on and Mike and I'm hitting on.
To wrap things up here, let's go with some kind comments about us. BJ said he misses Wade, but Greg and Javier, a great replacement. Listened to Greg for years and never interacted, so nice surprise. Well, hello, BJ. Consider this an interaction, and it's great to hear from you. Great to hear from everybody that we've heard from in the chat tonight. So thank you for the kind words about me stepping in for Wade here. I know those are big shoes to fill. And then we have BJ also saying, my yearly VIP just renewed. Best value ever. PWTorch.com/GoVIP is where you can go to find out all the perks of being a member, VIP member of PWTorch.com. Javier, it was great to speak to you here tonight. Before you go ahead and plug acknowledging WWE, when that's usually posted, what you guys talk about, and anything else that you want to plug here tonight.
Yeah, now WWE have a rotating cast of people, unless I can't get somebody, in which case everyone's solo. I am going to be on hiatus for the next 4 weeks. So I know Wade has some replacements scheduled for that. So I'm going to be going on vacation and unplugging for an entire week. So, and then I got to catch up with work.
Well, I was going to say, boy, will you trust me, I went on 2 vacations this summer, and it was so hard getting back into the swing of things because it doesn't stop. So you're trying to catch up as you're also trying to watch what's going on like contemporaneously. And it's just, it's impossible. It's nearly impossible. I did it, but I had to sacrifice some other things to get that done.
Yeah, and I'm at the point where like I'm barely watching AEW at this point because I wanted to get back into New Japan, and then fortunately Todd's review of the last G1 was kind of like, how's the torture BS throughout the entire thing. I'm like, good, I don't have to get back into it. And you tried TNA, but I don't like the whole WWE basically being WWE's redheaded stepchild. So yeah, WWE it is for me for now.
Okay. Well, great to have you on staff here and chatting about WWE with your own audio show and joining us here. And I'm sure one of these times I'll get to talk to you again on a post show, and I certainly look forward to it. Thanks.
Good talking to you again, Greg.
Absolutely. And thanks everybody for joining us in the chat, listening live, watching live, and then listening on demand as well. So you can catch me, my full page column each week in the Torch newsletter, Parks' Take every week on PWTorch.com. And I do this every once in a while. Join the post show, usually with Brendan LeClaire at the end of PLEs and pay-per-views, but occasionally I tag in when Wade has to tag out for one reason or another. So we'll do this again sometime soon, I hope. And we'll talk to you next time. And thanks for tuning in to the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show here for WWE Smackdown.